and welcome to Module 5 of the 15-Minute Band Builder. Josh here from DIYmusicmovement.com, and Module 5's topic, success in the studio. So we'll get into this one quicker. It's a pretty big module, so here we go. Actually, I didn't start sweating until I had children. Dave Grohl. Just quickly, this quote sums up just not taking the studio process too seriously, where you start hating being in the studio with your bandmates and possibly end up breaking up. Obviously, it's one of the most important things your band does, and getting the best product for the amount of money that you spend and for the amount of time and passion and effort that you put into it is important. Just don't take it to the point where you walk out of the studio with a finished album and no band to go and play shows or to support it with, because you put so much pressure on yourselves and each other that you actually ended up breaking up. So obviously what Dave's saying here is there's scarier things in the world than going into the studio. So thanks for that one, Dave, and we'll kick on now. While the album collecting culture of the past 50 years is still alive and well, and thankfully so, there is no shame at all in recording just a few songs, as amazingly as possible, and releasing them one by one to your fans. Time-intensive album projects are no longer a given. We are living through the mass adoption of the song collecting culture. Joshua Liston, 2013, that would be me. And essentially what I'm saying here is that the old way is gone. You don't have to go into a studio and make a massive album and take 2 years to do it. If anything, the amount of time it used to take to make an album, 2 to 3 years, including the writing cycle, is probably just too long in 2013 and beyond. You run too much risk of actually losing your audience to the amount of noise that's in their world these days. So if you did want to go down the route of just producing one song at a time, that's a very viable option now. So produce one song as well as you can and release them via a drip method, maybe one song a month or one song every 2 months. And then at the end of that period, you could release the album, a collection of those songs, or any kind of similar setup. Just basically just try to keep in mind, I guess, that the world has changed a little bit and people are buying only the songs that they like, and they're rarely going out and buying an album, running the risk of maybe not liking the songs. They're more likely to download an entire album than buy one these days. So, okay, so we'll move on. The studio. What is the purpose? Now, this is probably the most important thing to figure out before you go into the studio as a band altogether, is what is the purpose of the recording? Is it a demo for fans? Is it a digital-only release that you're planning? Is it for one radio single where spending a lot more time on just making one song sound as good as you possibly can would be better? Are you planning on making your release an EP or an LP? Or is the song a theme song for a movie, TV or podcast that you're planning on shopping the song to? All these things are important to get out of the way up front. Talk about what you're planning for 2 reasons. One, you don't want to get into the studio and find out that half of your band thinks you're doing one thing and the other half thinks you're doing something else. That will just cause tension in the worst possible place. That's in the studio. It's already a highly charged environment. For anyone that's been in the studio out there, you'll know that it can get very tense. And even a slightly sideways comment that would normally be laughed off as nothing more than just a in the moment slip of the tongue can blow up into a huge emotional ordeal in the studio just because of how stressful it already is. So make sure you go in with an aligned purpose within your band or your project, so everyone is on the same page and no one gets surprised when they're in the studio. Is 1 or 2 well-recorded songs going to serve us better than 12 demos of average quality? Would we be better off saving our money and time and looking at spending that money and time on other things, or looking into our opportunity costs? So basically what that means is, the thing that you're trying to achieve, is it actually achievable with only 1 or 2 songs as opposed to locking yourself away for 6 months to 12 months and coming up with a 12-song album? If you're trying to get on the radio, get coverage on Triple J on Earth in Australia or through digital radio stations worldwide, you might only need 1, 2 or 3 songs to get that process happening and get that going early, and put a lot of energy into it early and give that 12 months worth of promotion behind a few songs as opposed to waiting for 12 months for an album. And by opportunity cost, if you're unfamiliar with that term, essentially that's an economics term, which in essence means that with everything that you spend time, money or resources on, there's actually an opportunity to have done something else with that may have actually provided more of a result or more of an outcome, a positive outcome, than what you've actually chosen to spend your time, money and resources on. The opportunity cost being, if we do this one thing, then we have to pass up doing something else. And what's the likelihood of each option giving us the most result in the end? What systems and resources do you have in place to support the recording? So this is a really important thing to get out of the way up front. This is in alignment with deciding what the purpose of the recording is. If you have the finances to go and record a 12-song album, get it mixed and mastered beautifully, and not one extra dollar for marketing, for getting it digitally aggregated to iTunes and all those things, not enough money to send out press packs to support it, you don't have money to send out and use press release services, then you might be wasting your time spending spending all the money on a 12-song album when you don't have any money left to market it. That's what I mean by systems and resources. If you don't have the money left to get the artwork done, to get posters made up for the tour, if you don't have the energy left, as in that resource known as dedication and energy, then you might just be stuck with an album that took 12 months or more to make, and there's no way to actually push it once it's finished. So they're the three things you need to be figuring out. What's the purpose of the recording? How many songs do we need to achieve that purpose? Is there an opportunity cost involved? Is on top of that? And what systems and resources do we have in place? And or what do we need to build to release the album that we want? The studio. Is your budget solid? Now this is just a list of the types of costs and fees you'll be looking at to release just a standard album in 2013. Studio fees, are they per day or per hour? That can vary, or per song or per project, sorry. There might be an engineering or producer fee on top of the studio fee, depending on where you record and the profile of the producer or engineer. They may have their own rate on top of what the studio charges themselves. Mixing fees. This will generally be done by either the producer, the engineer, or an external mixer with credentials in the field of mixing. They may do per song, per project, or per hour, depending on who they are and whether they're mixing in their own facility or out of somewhere else. Mastering, the final, sound quality touch, that will be per song, per project, and or per hour or per day, depending again on where they do that from and what facilities they need to achieve the result you're looking for. You also need to keep in mind there'll be art and formatting costs for that art, physical printing costs. That includes the setup, where you might have to pay a once-off or upfront setup cost for to have the artwork aligned properly with the printers and all that sort of stuff. If you've ever gone through the printing process, it's a little bit more arduous than what it may seem when you first get quoted the prices. I've found that a lot of printers are a little bit disorganized, so make sure, just as an aside, that you stay on top of your printer. Make sure that they're aware of the date you need the album, how urgent it is that you have it by that point. Make sure that they let you know that your deposits have come through, all those kinds of things. And if it sounds like I'm speaking from a stressful, personal experience, then yes, that's certainly the case. One of my bands, A Candela Lies, last album barely made it to the CD release show. We did it, I think we had about 12 hours to spare. So don't let that happen to your band. Next up is digital aggregation costs. If you're not aware of what that term is, we're going to be covering that in more detail later on in the series, in the 15-minute band builder. But just as a quick coverage now, digital aggregation is the process that you need to use to get into iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, all of those digital outlets. That's an extra cost. That can be anywhere from $29 to a certain amount per song if you use another facility. I use TuneCore, which is, I think, at the moment between $29.95 and $49.95 per year. Show promotion costs, so this is the cost associated with actually going out and supporting the album release. In the last 30 years, I guess, the way the music industry works has changed on the very base level. It used to be a process of you release the album, the labels, etc., and the artist would make money on the release, and the live show would be to support the actual release of the disc or the physical product. Now, I guess it's diametrically opposed to that, whereas the live show is actually the main revenue source for the band and also for a lot of labels now with their 360 deal setups. And the album is essentially just new content for the audience that actually gives the artist a reason to be out on tour. So, ergo, show promotion costs are a lot more important now because the show is your main revenue source. And the reason you're making the album is to give yourself another reason and more content to go out with, and hopefully a bigger audience again that knows even more of your music. You play longer sets, you get bigger guarantees, all those types of things. So you need money to promote the shows. That could be posters, traveling, hotels, money to send out press packs, money to apply for different festivals if you're using an online application service, those types of things. You need to take into account that all costs money. You don't want to have an album and not be able to tour it. Marketing costs, so that could be anything from getting your merch done to paying a public relations company or paying to get ads in certain on certain websites or banner ads somewhere. Anything that your band does for marketing. That could be Facebook ads for your tour. You need to have some money left to market your CD or it's going to fall flat in 2013. There's just too much music getting released for free or low cost onto the internet, and you need some way to rise above the noise, and marketing is how you do that. Media and press attention costs, so that's we have covered, I guess, in show promotion and marketing. But more specifically, you want to have money to be able to send out your press packs, particularly if it's a more traditional media source. They may actually still want a physical kit. That costs money to send there. So we'll just go over a few terms, just so everyone's on the same page as we move through Module 5. What is mixing? Mixing is the first stage of the post-production phase, whereby audio levels, sound effects, instrument separation and tonal equalization are all altered to better represent the desired sound the artist, producer, and the listeners are all hoping for. An easy way to think about what mixing is song enhancement. Or you can hear what you want to hear and need to hear. What is mastering? Now this is a little bit more perplexing even to people that have had their music mastered before. Mastering, put simply, is the post-mixing process of adding tonal EQs and an overall shine or shimmer to your sound. It can generally be looked at as sound separation and a finer polish to your recording. The aim of the mastering process is to allow for your recordings to sound their very best across as many playback devices as possible. So that means to EQ it into a range where it will sound as good as it can possibly sound on as many different devices as it can, which is becoming more and more important because people listen to music everywhere now. On television, on their phones, on MP3 players, on their home stereo, on their car stereo, on their television, their computer. It can be coming from anywhere, so you want it to sound as good as it can on as many different things as it can, and to be as accurate to the sound of the genre, I guess, as it can be across all those formats. An example of mastering would be to get the vibe of the song or a genre, and further, just for instance, if we had a hip-hop track, you want your song as a hip-hop track traditionally to have that really thick bass sound, and to be able to maintain that thick hip-hop bass sound that's recognizable across as many different devices regardless of their speaker size and the density of the unit that's playing it, all those types of things, whether it has an actual bass expander or not, you want it to still sound like a hip-hop song. So mastering can be looked at as sound enhancement. Your songs aren't stuck in the speakers anymore, is how I heard it put once. It's what makes a professional sounding recording really stand out from one that hasn't been mastered, and you can definitely tell the difference if you've ever been through the process. The studio. Preparation for killing it in the studio. Practice every instrumental part, section and transition for all sections of the song to an approximated click track or tempo, and make sure that it's close to what you plan to record to. If you wanted to become even more proficient at your parts, you could try practicing every part of your record or demo to a faster tempo than what you're planning to record to. Record rough vocal parts, ideas and harmonies to ensure they're replicable in the studio and that they sound good in the context of an entire song. Stressed or tired vocals just don't cut it, so you really need to make sure that your vocals are strong. Most artists of high profile will spend as long on their vocals as they do recording all the other instrumentation on the album put together, so don't skip out on that. And you want to make sure that you're not wasting a lot of time trying to find harmonies and those types of things if you are doing just a demo in the studio. you want to know that before you go in there that certain harmonies are going to work together. Spend the extra cash on guitar setups, new bass strings and fresh drum skins and drumsticks. Make sure that everything's as fresh as it can be to give you a really nice, punchy, consistent sound. And you'll really notice in the studio when your strings particularly start to get old how dead your tone will become and how quickly that can happen. So be ready to change them regularly in the studio. Get a good collection of other bands' songs, sounds, beats and tones together on a disc or a USB and give that to your producer or engineer in advance, and point out exactly what parts of what songs you like and for what reason, because there's a good chance that a lot of engineers don't know the 20 unknown bands that you really like that you want to sound like. So give them some guidance. Ensure every band member has organised their own pre-production schedule, gear repairs, time away from work and their personal budget. Nothing will bring the mood of a session down faster than a distracted band member who is feeling crappy about non-band related stuff that's going on outside the studio. That just ruins the experience for everybody. The studio, killing the studio. Trust the producer and or engineer as much as you can. Just remember it is your CD, so in the end it's your say, but let them do their job within reason and you'll probably end up with a better product. A good studio operator should have some kind of preferred equipment list they can give you in advance, and or if you're recording in a more professional studio, they may also have their own gear that they would like you to use or could recommend you to use on hand, as in in-house equipment. Just two tidbits that I found are really important to making your studio time flow well and go well. That's to leave your crap at the door. You enter the studio to record great music. This takes both mental focus and also requires loads of creative inspiration, which is unlikely to come if you're all stressed out about internal band politics, personal distractions, or even a disinterested band member, or 2 or 3 restless band members. So basically all your personal stuff, as much as it might be killing you at the time, you really need to unload that somewhere else before you get to the studio itself, because that will just make the whole experience horrible for everybody. It's high stress enough without personal issues getting involved too much. The next point is don't leave your crap, this is actual physical crap, at the door or near it. The studio should be a relaxed environment where people can move freely and gear can be found and set up as quickly and tweaked without too much hassle. You don't want stuff piled around everywhere that people have to climb all over. Keys for killing post. Basically, this is just to remember to allow extra dollars for mixing and mastering. These 2 factors done well are the key elements of what separates great songs from truly great recordings, so don't skimp out on that. And just remember that you do need money, and you may need remixes and remasters done of your recording before it gets absolutely perfect to what you want. So have a little bit of budget left aside for that. Let the person mixing your album mix the bloody thing. This is something I've seen happen too many times, and that's when bands start throwing ideas at their engineer or mixer before they've actually even had a go at mixing it themselves. They are professionals, they have their own reputation, so let them have a go at it first and then start making requests for different effects and improvements or tweaks that you think could happen. You might find that a really good mixer that's in touch with your genre or your sound, who's really vibing with the songs, can get a result that you're actually not expecting. It might be better than anything that you can think of yourself. 15-minute band builder module 5 actions. Do loads of pre-production work to clicks or metronomes, and even run at a faster tempo than the recording may go at to improve your technical execution. Discuss what your goals are for the studio. Is it a 1-song demo, a 6-song demo, a full album, etc.? This is important, you want everyone on the same page. Take some time choosing with whom and where to record. Remember to factor in mixing, mastering and printing costs into your recording budget. That also includes marketing costs and press costs. Trust your producer and engineer, but remember in the end it is your music, so it's your say in the end. Just let them do their job as much as you can. And most importantly is just try and be as supportive of your bandmates as you can. Not everyone's as comfortable in the studio as someone else. You may find that 2 out of your 5 band members or whatever are studio whizzes and someone else struggles in the studio a lot. And they just might need a little bit of extra support or just to be left alone, possibly to record their part. So just remember that everyone is their own person in the studio. Not everyone loves it. I personally am not a massive studio lover. and I actually prefer to record a lot of my guitar parts that I do without anyone else there. I find that a lot easier. Rightio, so I'll see you in Module 6, and I hope you're enjoying the course so far, and if you wanted to, you can spread it around to anyone you want via email or point them to this page, and help spread the word on music marketing and the 15-minute band builder. Okay, I'll see you guys soon.